Hello, this is Jennie from Designs with Paper. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. I have a card making video for you. In fact, I will be using the bits and pieces that I created when I was playing with my hot foil glimmer machine in a video last week. So I have taken the pieces that I created and found card bases, and we're going to put them all together right here. This piece is a 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece of cardstock, so half of a sheet of cardstock. I am squaring it in the middle at 4 1/4 inches. I'm not folding it yet because I want to run the front panel of that cardstock through an embossing folder. So I have pulled out this, I think it's an old Stampin' Up! Or old Cricut embossing folder. Looks like Stampin' Up! And it's a damask pattern. And it kind of dry embosses. I wish it was easier to see embossing, dry embossing on camera. But it's so pretty. So pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this cardstock over. I am burnishing it on the back. I don't want to flatten the front, and then I did it anyway, but I was careful. And I am just going to adhere this panel that says Happy Birthday. This is the gold foiled oval that came in my Glimmer machine with the Happy Birthday sentiment. It is slightly smaller than the card front. I had trimmed it as close as I dared without cutting off any of the oval. So there's not as much of the card front showing, the embossed front showing as I had hoped, but it still looks really pretty. I am going to just use a little bit of liquid glue to adhere that down. Because of the dry embossing on the card front, you have to use a really good, like a liquid adhesive, there we go, because with the changes of the texture of the paper, a tape runner might not stick to the dry embossing. And then I will go ahead and put a piece of copy paper inside the card base so that there's a nice crisp place to write a note to the recipient of my card. And I do that with all of my cards, unless it's a white card base, and you'll see that about 7 times in this video. Okay, so there is our first card. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, and it really does look pretty, even though the embossing is a little bit harder to see until you open the card. Okay, for the second card, I'm using a black card base. And I am using that gold panel that was created by using the Pink Fresh Studios solid hot foil plate. And it is the leftover foil from the Happy Birthday on the first card. And it looks a little bit like hammered gold in real life. I really like how it turned out. I feel like the solid plate did a really good job, even though it's on colored cardstock. I have heard that for some cardstocks, the foil doesn't stick as well to it. And looking at the card in real life, it looks really pretty. There's a few places where the foil didn't stick well, but it looks really nice. So I have decided to add foam tape to the back of this panel so that it pops up a little bit off the front of my card. And I am not being very chintzy with the foam tape because I don't want the panel to sink. I want it to just look real pretty, and it's very subtle. It's a very simple birthday card, but it looks really pretty. And it's one that you could send to either a man or a woman. It's neither masculine nor feminine. It's just a very simple but pretty birthday card. And see, there you go. There's my copy paper inside the black card base so that I can write with something other than a white gel pen, because inevitably I will smear the white gel pen. Okay, moving on to the third card. I will be using this piece of vellum. So one of the things I tried was to see how the foil would stick to vellum, and it was beautiful. And I decided I wanted to color these leaves with Copic markers. However, on vellum, you need to color on the back because they streak a little bit. So if you color the back and then you flip it over, you don't see that streaky part. The cool thing about this is it means you don't have to be perfect. It will blend. It will look just fine, and all of the outline is hiding any of the nonsense that maybe, as long as you stay in the lines, you're totally fine. So I started with a mid-yellow to a mid-orange blend. I've got 4 markers there and just blended it out, and it looks so pretty. I love how it turned out. There's a couple of places you can see I went outside the lines a little bit, but nothing major. And you can't see the streakiness of the alcohol ink on the vellum because it's not completely see-through. It's not completely transparent. It's translucent. There's my middle school science coming back at you. I will go ahead and put this on a white card base so that you can really see that silver foil on the vellum. The next trick is getting vellum to stick to your card base because adhesive shows through. So my only option here really, because Copic markers are also translucent, is to put adhesive over the entire piece of vellum. So I have these pieces of Express It double-sided adhesive. I think I purchased these from Tailored Expressions. They are already cut down to card front size. So I just put it all over the back of the vellum, trimmed it down, and added it to the front of my card, and easy peasy lemon squeezy. One of the things I did last week was to foil this happy birthday sentiment onto some black cardstock. And then I trimmed it out for this card, and I am just going to adhere it right here to the front of this card. So I have a birthday card, probably for somebody whose birthday is in the fall because I colored the leaves in fall colors instead of spring colors. I could have used greens and then it would have been a spring leaf thing, but whatever, I like fall leaves better. So somebody will get this next fall, no problem. It'll just sit in my stash for a while. I love how the foil's attached to the vellum. Here is the reverse image of that. And I have trimmed it down with my Waffle Flower A2 layer dies, and I have made it just slightly smaller than a card front. I am going to be using this yellow cardstock. Not really sure why, because it's foiled on white paper. So I again used that solid plate from Pink Fresh Studios and took the leftover from the Copic colored card and put it on white paper so that I wasn't wasting that foil. And I'm just going to adhere that down. It took me a minute to decide how I wanted to do it. I decided to just go ahead and use tape runner to adhere that card front to the card base. And then I will need to find a sentiment. This is silver foil. It's a little bit hard to tell. My lights are kind of blowing it out a little bit, and I've got some kind of weird shadow. There's really not a purple stripe on that yellow cardstock. I've just got some weird shadowing going on for some reason. So I'm just going to center that card panel on the front of that card base, and I'm not pushing it down firmly until I'm sure that it is in the place I want it to be. I want it to kind of a same size edge all the way around, and I hadn't figured out what to do on the front of it, so I pulled out that sheet of silver sentiments that I created in the hot foil Glimmer video thingy, and I pulled out, or I cut out the I'm just a text away sentiment with my Simon Says stamp label strip dies. I feel like that's a tongue twister, even though the words do not sound the same. That was a little bit hard for me to get out of my mouth. I am using some painter's tape, and I need to de-stick it so that it does not tear my paper. And I'm going to stick that label down onto this sheet of sentiments that I created when I was playing with the foil last week. And actually, when I'm doing the voiceover, it's been more than a week, but you know what I mean. So I just have to carefully peel that tape up, and I've got a sentiment strip. It is longer than I need it to be, so I will just pull a pair of scissors out and trim that off. If the cardstock had been embossed with a frame around that die, because sometimes that happens, I would have used the die to trim off that other end just to make sure it all looked the same, but it didn't. And I am going to just pull out my liquid glue again and put a little bit of glue on the back of that sentiment strip after I put my die away so I don't lose it. And then I will have another card down. So that's like 4 cards down. Not doing too bad for this card making video foray, right? So I've got 4 cards that I created just using things I made playing with my hot foil Glimmer machine that I got for Christmas. That also was a mouthful. Okay, now that that sentiment has adhered, I can go ahead and put the liner in and then start thinking about the next card. The next card was a bit of a struggle, no lie, and that's because I kind of jacked it up when I was playing with the foil. So I will link to the video where I created all of these down below in the doobly-doo and at the end of the video. I made this oval with the hot foil plate that came in my machine. and I put the sentiment on upside down. Yeah, because it was special. I have decided I'm going to use some dark blue cardstock here. This is I'm sure it's Stampin' Up! Cardstock. Most of my cardstock is. I really like their cardstock. It's nice and smooth and thick, and also there's more pages per package, so I get a little bit more bang for my buck. I am going to run this through my die cut machine in the same embossing folder that I used on the first card. This is that Stampin' Up! Or Sizzix or Cuttlebug, whatever brand it is, kind of damask patterned, kind of wallpapery looking embossing folder. Now that I have that front of the card embossed, I can go ahead and fold that over and burnish the fold line with my bone folder. Especially when you are making this top fold portrait style card, you really need to use a bone folder to prevent cracking when you fold the cardstock. I wish, man, it looks so pretty. But I feel like that damask works really well with this, the pattern in the silver foil, or the oval foil, in this thing. Again, I am going to use my liquid adhesive because the liquid adhesive sticks better to embossed paper, dry embossed paper. So I have cut this oval out, with the Waffle Flowers oval dies. And I just picked one that went right along the edge of the oval. And that's because I didn't center it very well when I was foiling it. True story. And then I had to figure out what to do with the inside because I left the plate on upside down and foiled it was just shenanigans. I have taken the same color of blue cardstock and cut a smaller oval out of to place on the inside. So it kind of looks like I've created a frame, maybe. And then I found in my stash a dice that I completely forgot about, to be honest. It's Little Yellow Bicycle brand, and it has words in it, and I used these two words, love you, and I die cut them from some silver cardstock in my stash, and I'm just going to adhere them with the liquid glue. And hopefully I don't get liquid glue all over the front of my card. Oh, that was crazy. Give me a little bit of palpitations watching myself do that, because inevitably I'm going to make a mess. Because, liquid glue and I, we're kind of frenemies more than besties. I love what it does for my projects. I hate when I inevitably get it everywhere. And I just shook it right over the top of that card. Oi! Deep breaths. That bottle must be getting close to empty if I felt safe enough to shake it. Okay, so now I have that love you on the front of this card, and this could be a Valentine's Day, anniversary, a just because card for somebody that I love. So there we go. And once I get the liner in, I can start thinking about the next card. I had heard when I was watching videos about this Glimmer machine that the foil did not always stick well to colored cardstock. So one of the things that I did when I was playing was intentionally foil colored cardstock. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. So this next card is that. I have that Diagonal Stripes plate from Pink Fresh Studios, and I foiled it onto pink cardstock with silver foil, and it looks gorgeous. Gorgeous. But then I had to figure out what to do with the front of it. I remembered I had this Simon Says Stamp etched flowers die that I hadn't used yet. So I went ahead and cut each of those flowers and their extra pieces, and then I just colored the stems with one Copic marker and added some light pink to the veining on the flower. And this particular die has an extra piece for each flower. So there's like the flower and the stem and then an extra piece. And so that you can have dimension, right? I used a little foam square in between them. And when I got them put together, I realized I put them on backwards, but whatever, it works. I have trimmed down that pink panel off camera. I trimmed it down with my waffle flower dies. And it is about 4 by 5 1/4 inches, so it's smaller than the card front. Gives it a nice white mat around the pink striped foiled paper, card front, card mat, whatever you want to call it. And I will go ahead and adhere that down with my ATG tape runner. I really like this ATG gun. I think I've had it for like ever. This was one of my first kind of expensive card making supplies. I was kind of tired of always running out of tape runner in the little handheld adhesives. And at the time, it seemed like such a splurge to spend money on that. especially when the refills are not cheap. But it is like, oh my gosh, at least 10 years I've had it. Yeah, it still works like a champ. Every once in a while, I get a roll of adhesive. It doesn't come out very well, but not very often. Okay, I'm going to use some liquid glue and adhere those flowers to the front of that card. And then I have used another one of the foiled sentiments. This one says, I dreamt I gave you a big hug. And I know exactly who I'm sending this card to. I have a really good friend. She is one of my oldest and dearest friends, and I don't get to see her all together that often. And I would love to be able to give her a great big hug. So I know exactly where this card is going. I will adhere the sentiment strip down with a little bit of liquid glue right over the stems of my flowers. I am going to line it up with the grid on my mat so I can make sure I get it, excuse me, mostly straight. Okay, so this is the gold foiled leaves. I use those leaves a lot. And I want to fussy cut around one edge of this leaf cluster. And I am just doing the one side. I'm leaving a little bit of a white border. This is a thicker cardstock. It is the 110-pound Stampin' Up! Cardstock. I feel like there's too much white on the bottom of that. I don't know why I felt that way, but I did. So once I get the cover put back on my scissors, I am going to pull my trimmer out and trim some of that off. And I went back and forth with how far I wanted to trim that down. I ended up taking about, I don't know, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch off, just so that it was a little bit less. I could have left it and stamped a sentiment there, but I want to use another of the foil sentiment strips. And once I have that trimmed down, I'm going to add some 3M foam tape. My roll's getting a little small, and I might need to get one in my next Amazon order. And I'm going to peel that backing off and add that to the left side of this top folding card. And I will just use the lines on my grid mat to make sure everything's lining up nice and straight. And then I'm going to use another of those foiled sentiments. And I chose, first I'm going to use this black cardstock as a card base because it was on my desk. When I was putting together all of the things I needed to create these cards, I used bits and pieces that were already on my desk or that I had foiled while I was playing with my Glimmer machine. I didn't pull out any other papers. I didn't pull out any other images. I just used what was on my desk as far as cardstock and the foiled pieces. So I am going to go ahead and use my ATG gun tape runner to adhere this card panel to the card front. And it is the same size as the card itself, so there will not be any black border. I could have trimmed it down, but I hadn't thought about that before I put the foam tape on, so oh well. Okay, so now I need to cut out the sentiment. I will be using this Birthday Wishes down at the bottom here. And again, I will use my Simon Says stamp label strip dies. I could have used my paper trimmer, but my Fiskars wire trimmer needs a new blade, and I'm not great at little cuts with my guillotine trimmer yet. I'm getting better, but I'm not great at centering it very well. I'm going to go ahead and trim those ends off, especially since the painter's tape got stuck to the paper and didn't want to come off. I think it's actually a piece of washi tape, and I forgot to de-stick it. Yeah, whoops, don't do that. Because once it goes through your die cut machine, it's really hard to get that off. I want to put this over both the leaf cutout and the yellow cardstock. So I will need to put a little piece of foam tape on, like 2/3 of that birthday wish or that sentiment strip. And there we go. So this is 7 cards. Let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 7 cards. They're sitting here on my desk. 7 cards that were created just by one play with my hot foil machine. I cannot wait to play with it again. I have purchased some more foil plates, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Here is another quick look at all of those cards. I hope you enjoyed watching me create with the foil. And if you have not seen that foil machine video, go ahead and check it out. The link is listed below. Thanks so much for stopping by. I hope you have a really fabulous, fabulous day. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel and watching my video. I have linked a couple other videos here for you to watch, as well as a subscribe button. If you have not done so already, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel. And if you know somebody who would like it, please feel free to share. Have a great day.